Am I a lit bro? I love David Foster Wallace's work. The kind of love for a writing experience that sees you purchasing much of the author's published works within a matter of months of learning about them. Like a child frolicking through Wonka's chocolate factory, I absorbed as many interviews, short stories, and essays as I could to hopefully get a better grasp on the concepts and writing style. But my enthusiasm carried me off a very steep ledge. One day, while searching, I learned that David Foster Wallace is closely associated with a group of people referred to as lit bros. Firstly, that term is so awful and derogatory, I don't want to stand 2 feet next to it. And secondly, it seems to suggest a sort of insincere engagement with literature, which is an immediate contradiction to sincerity, which David Foster Wallace wrote about time and time again. A lit bro, according to a website titled Book John Podcast, is those dudes who are constantly talking over you, mansplaining feminism to you, or telling you about how much more they understand of the activism and politics of literature to you. In fact, if you Google search lit bro, David Foster Wallace's name comes up several times on the first page. Book John outlined ways to spot a lit bro. He uses code to say that he doesn't read books by women, identifies with Bukowski, Burroughs, and Hunter S. Thompson, talks about feminism as a way to get laid, talks over you and disregards your opinions because you can't relate to the likes of Hemingway, has pick-up artist manuals hidden in his bookcase, may wear a soul patch, pork pie hat, tweed jacket, or pocket square, and may refer to female authors and disregard them as chick lit. That sounds really awful, and I'm positive there are people who fit that description, but it does also cut down in a very broad stroke. Although I appreciate David Foster Wallace's work, I don't identify with the characteristics that classify a lit bro, except for the comment about tweed jackets because I generally think those are awesome. I don't find myself as a male trying to impress others or get with women, and I am myself a female writer. Some have been critical of David Foster Wallace and Infinite Jest in particular because of its length, thinking that it's unnecessary, that it's inaccessible. The fact that he's been labeled a genius probably has something to do with it, and the fact that it was really hyped for a very long time has turned a lot of people off to it. There's another YouTube channel and video that addresses this a little bit more by For the Love of Ryan, which I'll link in the description below and you can check out. My own introduction to Wallace's work was pretty innocent. At the time, I didn't know much about his work, who he was, and this stereotype. My friends introduced me to the concept of New Sincerity, and I began learning more about his writings. New Sincerity is basically an idea put forth from his writings on irony, and at the risk of oversimplifying the concept, he believed that irony was once a helpful tool, but eventually became more pervasive and contributed to an overwhelming cynicism. He thought that it remained too cool and offered no real solutions to the problems that it exposed. Interestingly, Infinite Jest is not the first book of Wallace's that I read. My first introduction was a nonfiction essay titled E Unibus Plurum, which is a commentary on television, how much the average American watches, its role on fiction, and the role of irony. The way Wallace spoke of writers and how human experiences were their food immediately got me hooked, if only because I could relate. I found a lot of new insights, loved the humor and multi-narrative structure. I genuinely loved this work. I also feel that it has a lot of important things to say about the culture that I grew up in. I think that ultimately, if a work of art can give you something, it states its own worth regardless of stereotypes. And though I think that lit bros do exist, I would like to point out with this video that using that term is, after all, just a stereotype. It is unfortunate that David Foster Wallace has become associated with lip bros because it seems to spit in the face of everything that he stood for. To me, it seems a lip bro is egotistical, insular, too cool, and the epitome of American privilege. While David Foster Wallace emphasized sincerity, engaging with the hard work of reading books, and he commented on mental health and addiction in our culture. He could be charged with being a white privileged male who took up space at the risk of alienating other voices, which I can get on board with 100%. But I would also urge those people who make that charge to engage sincerely with his work and the concepts that he presented. After all, what use does it do to associate David Foster Wallace and his readers with the term lip bro? What conversation is it advancing? My name's Sarah. If you'd like to participate in more creative conversations, consider subscribing. And until next time, keep making stuff that matters.